Campsite 14 is listed on every park map, numbered, marked, officially designated. But rangers won't investigate reports about it, because Campsite 14 appears in two locations simultaneously, 1 mile apart, identical layouts, same picnic table, same fire ring. Hikers who camp at the eastern Campsite 14 report normal experiences. Hikers who camp at the western Campsite 14 are found the next morning at the eastern site, with no memory of moving and their tents still standing at both locations. Rangers refuse to investigate Campsite 14 because the question isn't which one is real. The question is, what happens at the campsite that isn't on the map? Rangers don't talk about Campsite 14. They don't include it in patrol routes. They don't investigate complaints about it, not because they doubt the reports, but because every investigation produces the same impossible result. Two identical campsites, same coordinates on different maps, same physical layout down to the placement of rocks around the fire ring. And campers who fall asleep at one and wake at the other, with their belongings still present at both locations, as if they'd somehow occupied both spaces simultaneously. Tonight we follow 3 accounts, each describing encounters with Campsite 14, each ending with impossible duplication, and each revealing that the campsite isn't appearing in 2 places. It's appearing in every place someone looks for it. And whatever creates Campsite 14 wants you to camp there. Because the campsite that duplicates isn't the eastern one or the western one. It's the third one. The one that only appears after you've already set up your tent. The first account comes from Ranger Lisa Chen, a 9-year veteran working the central district of a heavily forested park known for its extensive campsite network and high seasonal occupancy. Chen was methodical, the kind of ranger who maintained detailed records, cross-referenced every complaint, and believed that apparent contradictions always had logical explanations. On June 12, 2018, Chen received 2 simultaneous reports about Campsite 14. First report, 9:47 a.m. Campsite 14 is occupied. Tent and gear present. No campers visible. Permit holder hasn't checked in. Second report, 9:52 a.m. Campsite 14 is occupied. Different tent, different gear. Also no campers visible. Chen checked her records. Only 1 permit issued for Campsite 14. Single occupancy. Checked in yesterday evening. She radioed the ranger who filed the second report. Confirm you're at Campsite 14? Affirmative. Eastern location. GPS shows 44.2847, minus 121.5692. Chen pulled up Campsite 14's official coordinates, 44.2847, minus 121.5692. Stand by. She contacted the first ranger. Confirm your location. Campsite 14, Western Access Trail. GPS shows 44.2892, minus 121.5847. Chen's stomach tightened. That first quiet alarm that something had shifted from confusing to wrong. Those coordinates were 1 mile apart. Both rangers were reporting Campsite 14, both at different locations. Chen grabbed her GPS unit and drove to the official Campsite 14 location, the eastern site, the one listed in the database. She arrived at 10:34 a.m. The campsite was exactly as described. Tent pitched properly, gear arranged neatly, fire ring with fresh ashes. Normal camping setup. Except no one was there. Chen documented the scene with photos, then drove to the western coordinates, 1 mile through winding fire roads. She arrived at 11:02 a.m. Another Campsite 14. Identical layout. Same picnic table, weathered wood, same carved initials. Same fire ring, same stones, same arrangement, same tent. Not similar tent, the same tent, same brand, same color, same tear in the rainfly. Chen's hands started trembling as she photographed the western site. Not from fear, not yet, but from the way reality had fractured into two impossible versions of the same space. She returned to her vehicle and pulled up her photos. Eastern campsite, 10:34 a.m., tent facing north. Blue backpack leaning against picnic table's east leg. Coffee cup on table's northwest corner. Western campsite, 11:02 a.m., tent facing north. Blue backpack leaning against picnic table's east leg. Coffee cup on table's northwest corner. Identical. Not coincidentally similar. Photographically identical. Chen radioed dispatch. I need supervisor authorization for a campsite 14 investigation. I have two identical sites at different coordinates. A pause. Then a different voice, her supervisor Marcus Holland. Ranger Chen, described the picnic table at the western site. Chen frowned. Specific question. Standard park issue table, weathered, has JM plus KR 2009 carved on the northwest corner. And the fire ring. Stones, standard arrangement. 7 large stones, 3 smaller ones on the east side. Silence on the radio. Then Holland's voice, careful and measured. Ranger Chen, you are ordered to leave both locations immediately. Do not approach the tent. Do not attempt to locate the permit holder. Return to headquarters. But the camper is not your concern. Leave now. That's an order. Chen felt ice flood through her chest, the certainty in Holland's voice, the fear barely controlled beneath professional command. She started her vehicle and drove back to headquarters. Holland was waiting in his office with a file, old, worn, marked, Campsite 14, restricted access. How many campsites did you see? Holland asked quietly. 2, eastern and western, identical. You only saw 2? The question made Chen's throat go dry. How many are there? Holland opened the file. Inside were incident reports dating back to 1995. Dozens of them, all describing Campsite 14. All reporting the same phenomenon. Multiple identical campsites appearing at different locations. Campers falling asleep at one site and waking at another. Gear duplicating, present at both locations simultaneously. And rangers who investigated reporting 3 campsites, 4 campsites, 5 campsites, each one identical, each one occupied by the same gear, each one exactly 1 mile from the others in a perfect geometric pattern. Campsite 14 multiplies, Holland said. The more you look for it, the more copies appear. 2 rangers see 2 campsites. 3 rangers see 3. We stopped investigating in 2003 after a search team of 8 rangers found 8 identical campsite 14s arranged in a perfect octagon, each exactly 1 mile from the center point. Chen stared at the reports. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Where's the center point? We don't know. Because no one has ever found a campsite at the coordinates that should be the center. That location is just empty forest. But every campsite 14 we find is exactly 1 mile from that empty spot. As if the real campsite 14, the original, doesn't exist in a location we can access. What about the campers? Chen whispered. What happens to them? Holland turned to the last page in the file. A list of names, 18 people, all listed as permit holders for campsite 14, all disappeared between 1995 and 2003. Not found at the eastern site. Not found at the western site. Not found at any of the duplicate sites. Gone. But their gear remained at every campsite, duplicated perfectly. Tents still standing. Sleeping bags still arranged. Food still hanging from bear cables, as if the campers had simply vanished, leaving behind perfect copies of their belongings in multiple impossible locations. The second account is darker, more invasive, more documented, and it involves a camper who deliberately stayed overnight at campsite 14 to document the phenomenon. This is the story of Dr. Sarah Voss, a cognitive psychologist who specialized in spatial perception and geographical disorientation. She'd heard rumors about campsite 14 from a former ranger and became obsessed with understanding the duplication. In August 2019, Voss obtained a permit for campsite 14 under false pretenses, claiming a standard camping trip. She arrived at the eastern campsite 14 at 4:47 p.m. She set up her tent, arranged her gear, started a fire, all while running multiple GPS units, cameras with timestamp overlays, and a continuous audio recorder documenting her every action. At 6:23 p.m., while gathering firewood, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Through the trees, approximately 1 mile to the west, she could see another campsite. Same layout, same tent, same color, same position. She checked her GPS. She was at the official campsite 14 coordinates. She hiked toward the western campsite, cameras running, GPS tracking her path. It took 17 minutes to cover the mile. When she arrived at the western site, it was identical. Not just similar layout, identical gear. Her gear. The same blue tent she'd left at the eastern site. The same red backpack. The same fire, burning with the same pattern of flames. Voss's recording captured her voice, shaking, "This is impossible. I'm looking at my own campsite. But my campsite is 1 mile east. I can see the smoke from my fire through the trees. Both fires are burning, both tents are standing. This is..." She walked to the picnic table at the western site. Her coffee cup was there, half full, still warm. The same coffee cup she'd left at the eastern site 17 minutes ago. She touched the cup, solid, real. She returned to the eastern site, jogging now, cameras still recording. 20 minutes to cover the mile back. When she reached the eastern campsite, her coffee cup was still on the table. Half full, still warm. She picked it up with trembling hands. Held both cups. No, she held one cup, but she just held the same cup at the western site. Voss's academic training fractured. Her hands started shaking violently, not from cold in the warm evening air, but from the way cause and effect had simply stopped functioning. She checked her cameras. Timestamp verification. 6:23 p.m. Left eastern campsite to investigate western site. 6:40 p.m. Arrived at western site. Documented identical setup. Touched coffee cup. 7:02 p.m. Returned to eastern campsite. Coffee cup still present. Both cups existed, simultaneously, 1 mile apart. Voss made a decision. She would sleep at the eastern site, document what happened overnight, solve this. She entered her tent at 9:47 p.m. Her audio recorder captured everything. 9:47 p.m. Beginning sleep documentation, all equipment running, GPS tracking active. 3 cameras positioned at 120-degree intervals around campsite. Motion sensors on tent perimeter. 10:34 p.m. Sound of rustling. Voss's voice. Something moving outside. Not animal sounds. Movement too deliberate. 10:41 p.m. The fire is brighter. I didn't add wood. It's burning higher than before. 11:08 p.m. I can hear voices, multiple voices. They sound like my voice, talking, overlapping, coming from different directions. 11:23 p.m. Silence. Then, at 3:17 a.m., motion sensors triggered. But the audio captured nothing. No footsteps, no movement, no sound. Just sudden activation of all 3 sensors simultaneously, as if something had appeared at every sensor at the same instant. At 6:42 a.m., Voss's voice, confused and groggy. I'm not at my tent. Where? She woke up at the western campsite, 1 mile from where she'd fallen asleep. Her tent was standing at the western site, her sleeping bag arranged exactly as she'd left it, her gear unpacked and positioned identically. But when she hiked back to the eastern site, her tent was still there. Still standing, still set up, sleeping bag still in place. She checked her cameras. The eastern cameras had recorded all night, showed her tent, undisturbed, from 9:47 p.m. to 6:42 a.m. No one entered, no one left. The tent never moved. But she had woken up 1 mile away. Voss retrieved her western cameras. She'd positioned them at both sites. The western cameras showed her tent appearing at 3:17 a.m. Not being set up, not being moved. Appearing. 1 frame, empty campsite. Next frame, complete camp, tent standing, gear arranged, fire burning. As if the entire campsite had been copied and pasted from the eastern location to the western location in the space between video frames. Voss left the forest that morning. She never completed her documentation. She never published her findings. According to her colleagues, she suffered a breakdown, spatial disorientation, recurring nightmares about occupying multiple locations simultaneously. She claimed she could still feel herself at campsite 14. Both locations. Still sleeping. Still waking. Still existing in 2 places at once. The third account is the most disturbing. Because it doesn't involve a camper or a researcher. It involves a ranger who found a third campsite 14, the one that isn't on any map. This is the story of Ranger Tom Whitlock, who worked the Northern District for 14 years and made the mistake of searching for the center point. Whitlock had read the files, knew about the duplication, knew about the geometric patterns. And he became convinced that if he could find the center, the point all the duplicate campsites radiated from, he could understand what campsite 14 actually was. On September 23, 2020, Whitlock calculated the theoretical center point based on all documented campsite 14 locations. The coordinates, 44.2869 minus 121.5769. Empty forest according to every map, no trails, no clearings, no features. Whitlock hiked to those coordinates. It took 3 hours through dense undergrowth. At 2:47 p.m., his GPS indicated he'd reached the center point. He was standing in thick forest. No campsite, no clearing, just trees and undergrowth. But something was wrong. The trees around him were arranged in a perfect circle. Not naturally, not coincidentally. Perfect geometric spacing. Exactly 12 trees. Exactly 30 feet from the center point where he stood. And on each tree, at exactly 6 feet height, someone had carved 14. Whitlock felt his chest constrict. His peripheral vision started to gray, that first stage of panic where the body recognizes danger before the mind accepts it. He took photographs, documented the trees, measured the distances. All perfect, all precise, all impossible for natural growth. Then he noticed the ground. At the center point, exactly where he stood, the soil was disturbed. Not recently, but deliberately. He knelt down, brushing away pine needles and leaf litter. Underneath, a flat stone, rectangular, carved with precise lines forming a grid pattern. He lifted the stone. Underneath was a hole, deep, dark, perfectly circular. And from the hole came sounds. Voices. Multiple voices. Overlapping. Talking. Laughing. Moving around. Campfire crackle. Tent zippers. Footsteps on dirt. All the sounds of an active campsite. Coming from underground. Whitlock dropped the stone and stumbled backward. His hands were shaking so violently he could barely operate his radio. "Dispatch, this is Whitlock. I'm at coordinates 44.2869, minus 121.5769. I don't know what I've found. There's something under the ground. I can hear." The voices from the hole stopped. Silence. Then a single voice, clear, close, coming from the hole. "Did someone arrive at campsite 14? Whitlock's blood turned to ice. Another voice, "I think so. Should we check?" A third voice, "We should invite them in. We have room." Whitlock ran. He didn't follow his GPS track back. He just ran. Crashing through undergrowth, branches tearing at his clothes and skin, terror overriding navigation. He emerged on a fire road 30 minutes later, gasping, bleeding from a dozen scratches, unable to form coherent sentences. Search and rescue found him at 4:23 p.m., dehydrated and in shock. He couldn't explain where he'd been, couldn't articulate what he'd found. Just kept repeating, "They're under campsite 14. All of them. They're still camping, underground." When investigators tried to locate the coordinates Whitlock had reported, they found nothing. No circle of trees, no carved numbers, no stone, no hole. Just dense forest. But when they checked GPS satellites for historical data on those coordinates, they found something that made them seal Whitlock's report permanently. The satellite imagery showed a campsite at that location. Not currently, not on recent photos, but in archived imagery from 1967 to 1995, a campsite appeared at those exact coordinates. Campsite 14. The original Campsite 14. It appeared on satellite photos for 28 years, then disappeared in 1996. No dismantling, no removal, no change to the forest. 1 year, campsite visible from space. Next year, dense forest, as if the campsite had never existed. But the Park Service records showed Campsite 14 was still listed, still available for permits, still documented as existing at the eastern coordinates. The campsite hadn't been removed. It had moved underground. And every duplicate Campsite 14 that appeared on the surface was a copy, a lure, an invitation to camp at a site that was broadcasting from beneath the earth. Today, Campsite 14 remains listed on every park map. But rangers know the protocol. If a camper reports staying at Campsite 14, file the report but do not investigate. If a camper goes missing after staying at Campsite 14, search the surrounding area but do not search the campsite itself. If multiple campers report Campsite 14 appearing in different locations, acknowledge the report but do not attempt to verify coordinates. And never, under any circumstances, search for the center point. Because rangers who investigate Campsite 14 find duplicates. Researchers who study Campsite 14 wake up in multiple locations. And rangers who search for the original find what's underneath. Find the voices still camping underground. Find the 18 missing permit holders from 1995 to 2003, still occupying their site, still going through the motions of camping in the dark beneath the forest floor. Some rangers believe Campsite 14 is a spatial anomaly, a location where space folds onto itself, creating duplicates, reflections, impossible multiplicities. Some believe it's something older, something that trapped a campsite underground in 1995 and has been duplicating it on the surface ever since, trying to lure more campers to join the ones still camping in the dark. And some believe the most disturbing theory, that Campsite 14 never moved underground, that the surface world moved above it, that the original campsite is still exactly where it was in 1967, and our world has somehow shifted, leaving that original location beneath our reality. But the campsite keeps broadcasting, keeps appearing in multiple locations, keeps calling to campers through duplicates arranged in geometric patterns, trying to collect enough people to fill every spot, trying to complete the circle. 12 trees, 12 spots, 12 campers, 18 down, 6 to go. And when all 12 spots are filled, when the underground campsite 14 is fully occupied, the surface duplicates will stop appearing. And everyone who ever camped at a duplicate will wake up exactly where those 18 permit holders are, underground, in the dark, at the original campsite 14, the one that's been waiting since 1967 for its circle to be complete. If you ever get a permit for campsite 14, if you arrive and notice the site looks freshly used even though you're the first permit holder, if you see your own campsite through the trees 1 mile away, don't stay. Don't sleep. Don't close your eyes, because some campsites aren't duplicating. They're collecting. And campsite 14 has been very patient, for a very long time, waiting for 12, counting slowly, getting closer. And the voices Whitlock heard underground, they weren't asking if someone had arrived. They were confirming, because every duplicate collects one more camper. Every investigation adds one more voice to the circle. Every night, someone sleeps at campsite 14. The underground campsite counts. Getting closer to 12. Getting ready to stop duplicating. Getting ready to bring everyone home, to the original site. The one beneath the earth, where camping never ends.